In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table.
a place at the table where we're set to take much more than the table.
Welcome. Glad you could join us at the table. As promised, we will continue to expend energy to maintain the momentum on the required reforms. Today, we focus on local government autonomy.
That's correct, Ande. Whereas for me, I will be tackling a phenomenon that ought not to be familiar, but unfortunately it is. And we're talking about the dollarization of the economy.
Interesting that you should be talking about dollarization. Today, I'm alerting Nigerians to the fact that we need new elites. But before that, it's my pleasure to welcome a sister who you should all know, and her name is Boyo. Welcome, Ego.
Hi, thank you for throwing me straight in, sort of. And I will be tackling the critical problem of educational reform.
Welcome again, Ego.
Thank you.
Good to see you here. So yes, we tackle issues at the jugular and we don't let go. I am asking today why the silence after the groundbreaking report by Fisayo Shoyombo on Nigeria's customs service.
Well, as you can see, we don't give up here. And after the break, it's Emi Lokan. Different countries have different arrangements for local councils. In Nigeria, we like to say we have 3 tiers of government: federal, state, and local. The federal and state governments get funding directly from the federation account based on agreed sharing arrangements, while the funds for the local governments are paid to the joint state accounts to be disbursed by the state's LGAs. Only this does not happen as should and is usually at the discretion of the state governor. We have had this arrangement long enough to realize it is not working. Instead of building strong institutions, this has simply led to creation of 36 strong men, as the governors of the states control all the resources, surprisingly, including the funding for the state legislature. As powerful as the presidency in Nigeria is, there are real checks and balances because of independent funding to the states as well as to the federal legislature and judiciary. It is only logical that this should be replicated in the states. Direct funding to the local governments and subsequent resource control by the LGAs hold the potential to Nigeria's economic growth. If states aren't simply abusing the current arrangements, why are they against LGA autonomy? We cannot continue with a system whereby an incompetent or corrupt governor means doom for the entire tenure for the entire state. Each local government should be empowered to govern their citizens. Why should states babysit LGAs? Is this an indictment on the process that leads to the election of the LGA chairpersons, meaning we have no confidence in them? LGA chairpersons are the closest to the people. They will, or at least should know the needs of citizens, understand requirements for economic development and security, and above all, it should be easier to hold them accountable than a government in the capital. It is said that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Amongst the many advantages of the LGA autonomy to reduce corruption in Nigeria, we have to remove the absolute power given to the state governors. It is time to make it make sense.
I have questions to ask you because I need to sort of understand what you actually mean, because I feel you are more focused on the money, on the funding, which I feel is a distraction. Am I wrong?
Money is everything, you're right.
Right. No. So you are more focused on the money.
Sure.
Right. Okay. All right. So if we go back to, I'm not sure whether it was 20, what are we in, 2023, 2021, perhaps 2020 or so. So the clamor for the independence of local authorities or local government getting their money has been on for a very, very long time, right? Then President Buhari came, and what he did was, he did the Buhari thing, half lip, half frozen. What he did was, he did an executive order that mandated that the funds of local authorities should go directly to them. So when you say they have one account, yes, but it's like having one account with different, account A, account B, and everything. However, where I would like to bring you, or to bring us back to is, I feel we missed something. Why do we have seven for local governments? I think that's the place to start, because with everything else, it starts with our constitution. And so we have to, rather than even talking about funding, we have to go back, like the law, when you talk about laws, you talk about the spirit of the law. So what is the spirit of the constitution that gives us 774 local government councils?
Ireti was talking about, why do we have 774 local governments? Again, I think it comes back to the issue of they being closest to the people, so that the people get the dividends of democracy, which unfortunately we haven't yet received after so many years of democracy. So what are the local governments doing? If you want them to be autonomous, why are you not funding them? And then why can't we even have the money directly given to the local governments without it passing through these strong men in Nigeria?
I don't think it's a problem of local government capacity in terms of the delivery of those in the seat as
presently
local government chairman. And I also disagree that they are not being funded. They are funded.
They are funded.
Right?
So what's going on?
They are funded. There's a revenue sharing formula that allocates. The problem is that their funding is diverted. But we know what the 36 big men did. They basically frustrated it, and it didn't go anywhere. So the issue really is, and I liked how you framed it. What is the spirit of the Constitution? Because the local government gets the autonomy not from what any politician thinks. They get the autonomy from the Constitution. The same place where the federal government, the state government, and the legislature get their own sense of autonomy from. Okay, so the question is, why is the local government not feeling that autonomy?
Power.
Autonomy. And that's where we have to talk about constitutional change.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you in terms of constitutional reform, because as you said, why do we have so many? And I mean, they're trying to meet, make sure that everyone is represented, but surely there's a way of doing it so that it doesn't have to be in such little pockets and so many. I also like what you mentioned about the sort of people who have the ability to manage resources, who know how to manage resources properly, being the people that should come in and, run for local governments.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And Yinka, I would like to start from what you said about the Constitution. We know it's a constitutional issue. Actually, the Constitution puts it as if there are two federating units, the federal and the state. But in the same Constitution, it says we have 3 tiers of government. That has to change, and that is why we're even making this advocacy. But I would like to go back quickly to some questions Ireti asked. What is the function of the local government? You see, we are going to talk about educational reforms later. It's not going anywhere without the local government being funded. That's why you heard of LEAs. And if you go and see the LEAs, they are in a sorry state. Primary health care, okay? A large chunk of primary health care is supposed to be the function of the local government. Then, even, thank you, housing and some infrastructure, including small roads, feeder roads, and all those.
Businesses.
But, yes. So, to create that enabling environment. Now, why we keep saying it's about the money, if you look at any other arm of government, not tiers now, the judiciary, the legislature, they've insisted on having their autonomy autonomic funding. Without that, somebody, you are the beck and call of somebody. They can make, you know, politicians, executive pronouncements and all that. No, we know some stories that...
but the system is there, though, Andy. I have to say, the system is there. Just because the system is disrespected, as most systems are in this country, it doesn't mean it's not there.
So how do we enforce
no, my question is
right
this. My question is this, right? Why the joint account? It's so it's not. We're not starting.
Okay, what you're saying is why don't they have their own account?
We're not starting the race now, right? We've had years of experience to know that it is not working.
Yeah.
I'm saying if we go back as a people, focus on systems, not individuals. Focus on systems that actually enables a bad leader to be really bad and supports a good leader to really excel, then I think we'll do better. I think that's what you're saying.
Absolutely,
well.
and I think we're actually saying the same thing, because if you recall...
For a change.
if you recall, I said, as powerful as the presidency is, there are real checks and balances, because the judiciary and legislature are independent. The governor has total control. The money for even the state legislature comes into his coffers. So agreeing to what you are saying is to stop the enablers of that system, of making one man, of enabling one man to become the all in all. So someone said it seems impossible until it's done. Yinka is up next, and it seems to be stirring up a citizens' vigilance movement.
Within the last 2 weeks, we're witnesses to two breaking news. One was the disclosure by the EFCC of the payment of over $720,000 school fees in advance to the American International School of Abuja by ex-governor Yahaya Bello for his kids up to 2034. The second was the closure by the FCCPC of a supermarket in Abuja, which only allowed Chinese customers and quoted their products in yen. No, I'm not going to be talking about the alleged corruption of a governor who thought it prudent to pay the school fees of his kids in advance while owing civil servants months of unpaid salary, or the audacity of a Chinese supermarket to deny Nigerians the right of entry into a supermarket in their own country. Nah, what I will be talking about is the one thing common to these two stories: the use of the foreign currency as a means of exchange and payment for goods and services within Nigeria. What we like to call the dollarization of the economy and its potential impact on the stability of the financial system. It has been established that if a substantial part of the financial system is dollarized, it could create stability risk in the form of either liquidity risk or servicing risk, or both, for Nigeria. For the avoidance of doubt, Section 20 of the CBN Act of 2007 states clearly and unambiguously that the currency notes issued by the central bank shall be the legal tender in Nigeria for the payment of any amount. Furthermore, Section 20, subsection 4 of the Act stipulates that any person who contravenes this provision is guilty of an offense and shall be liable on conviction to a prescribed fine or 6 months imprisonment. On 3 different occasions, the CBN has issued circulars and press releases reminding us of this law, yet it persists. So the question is, if the position of the law is clear on this issue, then why are we increasingly seeing schools issuing invoices in USD, landlords charging rent in USD, and even a supermarket tagging products in yen? Why are they so audacious in their act? I believe one reason is because it is a crime of the elite, by the elite, and for the benefit of the elite. The only way to stop this, as we saw from the case of the Chinese supermarket, is for Nigerians who are the beneficiaries of these services to speak up and report these illegal acts. What do you guys think?
True, true. People have to report it, and the law then has to be enforced.
I think it puts them all together.
Bricks to what?
The case of the supermarket and the school are not the same.
Are not the same.
They're
though.
totally different. So, AIS, American International School, French school, I think there used to be a German school, if I remember rightly, but I can certainly speak for the French school because I have experience. My son went to the French school. They are part of the embassies, okay? So, that makes them independent. This is not the supermarket I'm talking about. I'm talking about the schools. So the French school is able to charge in euro, which they did to us when my son was there, right? So they charged partly in euro and a percentage in naira. That means that that CBN Act cannot apply to them because when you are in a foreign embassy in any country, you are in foreign land.
Are you saying that the school itself is embassy ground?
No, it doesn't have to be.
No, that's what you're saying.
No, permit me
not
again.
embassy ground.
It's not, all of that is long thing. It's not about physicality. The French school, the French school, the French school is actually run by the French consulate.
Yeah.
As the French school, every, staff, French staff, they have Nigerian staff, but the French staff are paid in francs. Now, I don't know how they do their percentage, but I know that there's no wow about it, right? Let me go back to something.
Okay.
We have an issue. When we get all emotional about these things, we forget what the state of our country. The state of our country is we have a forex that's unstable. We have a forex that no business on this table or in any Nigeria can plan against. What they don't do is they don't do that in the UK. The French school in the UK charges in pounds. Why is the French school in the UK charging in pounds? Because it's a much more, how'd you say, stable currency. They are able to plan. The amount is the same all throughout.
I mean, I hear you loudly. The question I'm going to ask is, why isn't there such a clause?
Yes,
Constitution?
exactly. There should be something.
Is
there something legal that says that a foreign school in this country is allowed to charge, apart from being a part of the
maybe
embassy?
if I can chip in.
And I'm not done.
I'm not done yet. Are you sure?
Then secondly, from what Ireti has enlightened us about, I'm wondering why the dichotomy, why are you paying those who are French in your school dollars, but and those who are Nigerians in that same school in naira?
Exactly. Because they are foreign staff.
No way.
No, but then it just means that there can't be any legal.
No, I understand, but
there can't be any legal basis for it.
It's allowed because it's part of the embassy.
It is, right?
I know the American International
rules.
School and all that, but
yes.
I think that was just an example,
of
many Yinka gave. So let's not allow
that to overshadow.
No, I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. Let's not mix it together.
And then even coming
very different
to the payments.
Things.
So because they are being paid as citizens of their country, working in their country.
Thank you.
That's why they are paid in those currencies.
Thank you.
The CBN law doesn't allow them to pay you that is
a Nigerian
that is taken as a foreign service national. That's how some of them call it. So the CBN cannot be funding such a large parallel market, okay? That's the BDCs, and then be complaining about dollarization of the economy.
Thank you.
Then we hear a lot about illicit USDs in the system, oil bunkering and all that. A lot of money, not small money.
Now we've been educated in terms of schools. Foreign schools like that are sometimes
they're part of
the embassy, so that's fine. But then when you consider landlords, I guess it is elitist.
That's
yes, it is an elitist position to be able to charge.
Nigerian landlords who back then would say they want $20,000 per year, and that was when, as we say in Nigeria, when dollar was still dollar. When dollar was still dollar. And I was like, I don't understand. I do not earn in dollars.
When you encounter that sort of situation, then you need to report.
So if you report, for instance,
then what?
Look, why is a landlord, okay, giving me, issuing invoices to me in USD for a lease? That's illegal.
I wouldn't have a clue where to report to. The FCCPC has been around for many years, but they have been comatose until Tunde came along.
Fair enough.
And now, the person that's taken over from Tunde now knows that he too has to be visible.
Well, sadly, that is the case for a lot of these agencies.
So where
I
do
think
we
they
report to?
definitely need a research in terms of making sure that the general public know that they exist and exactly what it is they do. We're in that social media news age where you can actually get the message out and get people to be aware. I think one of the biggest things here in Nigeria is about where to report to, as you said.
So I think that we all need to be involved here. You know, there's this part of our national item that says the labors of our
Heroes
past
shall never be in vain.
Okay.
Yinka, you've not read my next advocacy.
Really? I'm so sorry.
Too sad.
I'm so
Are we
sorry.
going to sing the national anthem?
No.
You know,
not
so-
all of
Because
them.
I want to get my voice ready.
If we make up our minds, and I say we, when I say we, I mean the elites who are the beneficiaries of this dollarization. If we make up our minds to report these instances, whether it is by a landlord, whether it's by school, whether it's by a law firm or whatever it is, and we say that they are going against contravening the laws of the land, I think we might be able to stop this act. One voice at a time, we will build a more accountable society. Ireti may be calling for more radical reforms, however. She's up next.
We need new elites. I repeat, we need new elites. That's a quote from a wonderful brother of mine, Akeem Akande. And he said it and he would say it and he would say it all the time. And I would wonder, you know, what's he talking about? And then it clicks. Of course, from civic to social to cultural and politics, capitalist societies are bolstered by its elites and middle class. While the middle class in Nigeria has been emaciated to kwashiorkor, the Nigerian elite continue to excel as the weakest link. You see, the EFCC search for the belligerent ex-governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, has begun in earnest. The self-proclaimed white lion has now become the hiding thieving rat. So, Chief Anti-Graft Officer Ola Olukoyede mounts the stage and declared to all of us and anybody else that would listen that he will resign if he fails to prosecute Yahaya Bello. Yeah, is Bello the only suspect on his to-do list? So what's the postulation all about? Just this week, I came across a story about the decayed structure of Eric Moore School in Surulere. Immediately, people began to point fingers at government. But I asked, where are the alumni of Eric Moore? You see, historic institutions such as Harvard are maintained by the donations from former students. And of course, we also see many alumni groups in Nigeria do the same for their alma mater. However, my mid-morning digital tea was with my darling favorite auntie, and I know Ego will connect with this. She's the best of them all. We call her Mama T, Mrs. Taiwo Ajayi Licence to the rest of you. So Mama T and I bemoaned the lack of collaboration in the industry due to the paucity of funds and a comatose arts council. Now, as if on cue, up pops the trending video of Dave Umahi. Yes, Dave, I grew up in the village, Umahi, Minister of Works. A video, 10 minutes performance of the absurd and the dysfunctional. You see, the erring contractors attempt in that video to seek clarification about the contract in the presence of a foul-mouthed senior government minister, Dave Umahi, was punctuated with threats from Dave Umahi that he would get the locals, thugs, to deal with the contractor. That's a quote. Our avalanche of problems points to a society led by successive dysfunctional leaders who are leading us towards a downward spiral. You see, that's the dysfunction which seeds a period brand that I call African billionairism. What's African billionairism? African billionairism is the disease commonly termed poverty mentality. It is the mindset of a billionaire who pays 10 years advance tuition to a foreign school for his offsprings, while the children of his state continue to languish in penury. It is the mindset of billionaires who prefer to donate their riches to educational institutions in developed countries. Culture, civic, and learning institutes in the global north were built by their billionaires. Yet, pilfering African billionaires are accursed with a desperation for Western orientation, validation, and applause. So if we're serious, as our national anthem inspires, we had better invest our efforts to help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, in order to ensure a future Nigeria with new elites.
So it seems that you and Ande, you are together on this national anthem again. Because I hear the national anthem in what you said. But so the point I'm making is this thing you've called African billionairism, and you called it another name again, is this mentality of my Mercedes is bigger than yours. And that's what's taken into governance, into leadership in Nigeria. It's awful. But you are talking about the need for a new set of elites. I think it's in the hands of we, the media, because we make the newsmakers. We call them newsmakers. We elevate these people to prominence and visibility. Why do we not start to have agenda, a new agenda with our unions, with the national, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, with the Nigerian Union of Journalists, with the female version, the NAWOJ? How do we come together to say, you know what, we're going to create a new set of elites?
Yes, that's interesting.
I don't want to sound cynical.
But
because in your advocacy you said, who are these elites? And then you named them.
no, I said we give birth to them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you basically named, you talked about
The children.
The children.
Yeah.
You know, and you
They're yet
alluded to
unspoiled.
the fact that
They're yet uncorrupted.
they are not corrupted. You know, they are more in number and things like that. When I was young, when I was in my between 5 to 10, I saw a functional Nigeria. So when I talk passionately about a functional country, I have a picture in my head. The children you are talking about today have no such picture.
But we have to make that.
We have to teach them.
Yeah,
Thank
you know,
you. We have
so that's the challenge for us, really, in terms
That's
of.
why I said we.
You know, and that's where I agree with that that's where the media comes in.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you finish. I'll come back. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There has to be that picture, something for them to aspire to, something for them to see, to be able to now understand what functional even means. The first thing I was going to start with was, you know, I had a problem with you even calling these people elites, because the meaning of the word itself is nothing near what they are. Superior in terms of ability and the quality over the rest of the group or society, they're not. So you really, what you say is true. We must create new elites and we have to build them, So that starts with these young children. We must teach them. And yes, I agree, the media, but the family unit.
Yeah.
We have been so torn apart by this whole idea that it is the, you know, when people go from, not all the time, but when people go from rags to riches, and it's then all the trappings of all of that wealth is what is celebrated, what is uplifted, what everybody aspires to. That is what we're teaching. We're not teaching people that it's hard work and getting there gradually and putting, you know, and really hard graft and being honest and truthful and not corrupt. Through making sure that we have the right films, my area, that films reflect the kind of society that we want. Not the society, yes, we must show the society, it's a mirror. So we show the society we have, but we should also show the society we want.
I love that you've spoken about film, the power of films, the images.
Yes.
You know, because films speak to people.
Yes.
I can remember when Jagun Jagun came out, you know how people felt so very proud of their cultural heritage and that authenticity about the fact that, yes, we too are like this.
Yeah. And it not only that, it also changes just even in a very quiet and almost subliminal way, it changes your thinking because what you're seeing is what you're taking in. If you constantly see pictures of violence and, you know, things being torn down and all of that, it will become almost, you know, it's a part of you, it's your reality.
No, Ireti, to be honest, do we need new elites? Yes, 100%. And in addition to all their shortcomings, zero social responsibility, they don't give back to the community. For me, their biggest crime is the conspiracy of silence. Okay, against bad governance and all that.
Yes.
You know, so and it now creates a vicious cycle. How to get those new elites is $1 million. No, let me not dollarize it. It's $1 million question.
So when I talk about elites, I'm not necessarily talking about those people that are just awful, absolutely disgraceful. I'm also talking about the mentality of being an elite, of thinking beyond yourself, of thinking for the society, for the collective growth, not being quiet, like Andy said, when you see that things are wrong. Ego is up next, and she seems to be focused on prevention and cure.
So, education, this is a big thing for me. Education reform in Nigeria is crucial with a pressing need to bridge the gap for quality education. So today I'll be tackling the essential need to bridge the gap as an overview and go on to look at specifically into educational reform in the areas of curriculum, student ratio, inclusivity, monitoring, and you know, and even facilities and all of that in a subsequent advocacy. Research highlights stark disparities between the private and the public sectors. And these are raising questions about accessibility, standards, and inclusivity. So let's envision a world where every child in Nigeria has access to quality education regardless of their background. According to UNESCO 2020, there are over 13 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, a shocking number. The majority of these children, sadly, are from the northern regions, and you know why, because of insurgency and all that has happened, with states from the northeast and the northwest having the highest rates. So let's explore the impact of, say, digital aids in bridging this gap. Digital aids such as e-learning platforms, digital textbooks, and educational software have the potential to bridge the educational gap in Nigeria by providing equal access to quality education for all students, regardless of their location or their background. We need to explore the urgent necessity of major investment in education infrastructure. Investment in education infrastructure is pivotal for tackling these educational, challenges, such as, school buildings and the things I've mentioned. The millions of out-of-school children require spaces dedicated to providing proper learning environments, to have facilities, libraries, sports facilities, school supplies, and the ICT equipment, computers, tablets, connection, and internet connection, which is crucial to be able to get all of that e-learning in place. A lack of these basic systems in the 21st century mean that many of our children do not have adequate learning environments. Transportation provision will also assist many children to get to school. The provision of transport systems with special rates for children, school buses, etc., are something that we could cover. In addition, basic services again, electricity, water, they need to be provided. And this will impact the number of children who are able and willing to attend. UNESCO again 2020 highlights that only 60% of Nigerian children aged 5 to 14 attend school, emphasizing the critical need for substantial investment in education infrastructure to address these disparities. Now, I'll leave it here for now because there's a lot to cover in this, and I'll get some input from my fellow analysts.
I have one question.
Okay.
I don't know whether it was deliberate, but I noticed you left out school feeding. Was that?
Oh, yes. No, that was not deliberate.
Okay.
That was definitely an oversight. Definitely a huge part of the reasons why children will be willing to come back to school.
Yeah.
Especially,
Okay.
being able to
So what
get
you're
a
saying
meal.
is, what you're saying is let's incentivize them back,
Yes.
right? So
Bursary.
if you
Bursary.
incentivize the mothers by, like you said, feeding, right, food, so they have school lunch, as we used to call it, right? Do they get breakfast is a question. I would say breakfast and lunch, but that might seem too expensive. And then also help the mother to be financially independent, empower her. So she's not just sending her child to school to learn and whatever. She is also learning some form of financial literacy in order to be able to encourage a child and say, look, this is what education gave to me. A society where the vulnerable are ignored and forgotten and pretended not to exist by the elites is a society that will remain in continuous decay.
Yeah.
Right? So if we want to incentivize these kids, what's wrong? Honestly, don't buy rice. Stop frigging giving out rice every, I don't know, Salah or whatever.
Yeah.
Why not actually teach them to farm, fish, and whatever?
Ego, thanks for raising this. When you were talking about educational reforms, you mentioned things and infrastructure stands out.
Yes.
Quality of teachers stand out. Then, even before you reeled out all the problems, I had already noted that when you discuss any problem or try to address one problem, it unpacks a new set of problems because you cannot really solve problems in isolation. It's so important, and everything rests on it, that I don't know, are we going to declare a state of emergency or something?
I like that you've talked about digital aids and intervention. And it reminds me of the state of Osun State. I think they've reverted to Osun State now.
Okay.
The state of Osun under Aregbesola had what was called Okmoimo. Unfortunately, we cannot evaluate the impact of Okmoimo.
What does that mean?
On students, their computer tabs. Their tabs that were given to schools, public schools for that matter, not private now. It was a
digital.
Yeah, it was a state policy in the state of Osun at that time. At this level of our journey and history as a nation, we shouldn't just be talking about school feeding that we imported from some country in Asia. We should be talking about how well we have been able to localize that intervention here and what the impact is. It is not that we give to contractors who then give these children watery stew and some miserable eba. Ireti is talking about new elites. How are you going to make new elites of people who don't have the right foundation to become these new elites in our universities? When once upon a time in this country, lecturers were earning the same thing as generals in the army. When we talk of educational reform, and I see that my voice is raised because I'm trained as a teacher originally. And so, but when I see what's going on in public schools in Nigeria, it grieves the entirety of me. Please, our president, we need this educational reform. So I'm joining EGO to say, look, it's about time we revisited digital interventions in our schools.
Everything that, Ego said there, it's fantastic. We need to do it. But we're broke as a nation. We can't do it. UNESCO said, I believe it's the UNESCO, that a country, a national, must budget anywhere between 15 to 20%. Okay, for education.
Yeah.
Nigeria budgets anywhere between 5 to 7%. I think we are around 7%.
Yeah.
So we're like 50%
Less.
really less.
Yeah.
Is it even released?
So, and that's even at the federal level.
Yeah.
All right, and the federal level, when you then drill it down to the current list and the exclusive list, the federal government only handles tertiary. So the states are the ones that are responsible for, you know, the primary and secondary schools. Yeah. So the solution right now is either that we find a way of increasing the revenue. It's not about who becomes president. It's about how do we raise our revenue bar to be able to afford to do the investments in infrastructure,
for education,
in investing in this digital education. How do we do that? Or we find a way of getting the elites, maybe through non-governmental organizations, to invest in actually this infrastructure. And I say that as not somebody who is just saying this. I say it as somebody who has done it.
Yeah, but Yinka, before you, just a quick rejoinder, I think you are taking it easy on mismanagement of our resources.
I don't dispute that.
Apart from the inadequate resources, the
There's
ones that are there, are they being
managed
properly? Big issue.
Yes, it's a big issue.
The current Minister of Education, and we must call these people out, is Tahir Maman. What is he doing? And we've got to ask the question. If this show is going to be of any use, we've got to start calling these people out, right? So we are asking Professor Maman, what exactly are you doing? What is your plan, to reform the education landscape in Nigeria, be it primary, be it secondary, be it tertiary? Because we are not hearing from you, sir. We are not hearing anything from you. And honestly, I hope you look out for Boyo's advocacy, because the Constitution gives us the power that gives you a job. You need to listen to her.
So thank you to for all of you for contributing. It does take a village, and we have to be intentional about being part of that village.
I agree absolutely with you, Ego. Accountability is a crucial part of belonging to a functional community.
Yeah.
I am curious about the Nigerian government's silence about the revelations of one of Nigeria's finest investigative journalists, Fisayo Soyombo. In February 2024, Fisayo did a two-part series on the activities of the men and officers of the Nigerian customs in both southwest and northern Nigeria. On Tuesday, February 20th, FIJ released the trailer of the undercover investigation titled Undercover as a Smuggler by Fisayo Soyombo, its founder and editor-in-chief. He followed it up with a multimedia story on Wednesday and a 16-minute documentary on Thursday. In the first part, titled Undercover as a Smuggler, Mr. Soyombo told the story of how, as an undercover journalist fronting as a smuggler, he attempted smuggling 100 bags of rice from the Republic of Benin to Nigeria. He implicated IBD International Hotels, Elaro, stating that it was built with smuggling proceeds. And in the mix, he portrayed Elaro town as a smuggler's hub. In his second article titled Exclusive, Nigeria Customs Smuggling Terrorist Motorcycles, he told the story of how the service abates terrorism by compromising the itineraries of their patrol teams to smugglers. Now here are the excerpts. All the motorcycles that bandits and terrorists use for their operations, Dende is the one moving them in on behalf of the customs. The tramadol he imports for customs also goes to Kano. End of quote. By the end of March 2024, the Nigeria Police Force had declared Fisayo Soyombo wanted. Buki Shonibare, the chairperson board of trustees of FIJ, which is the Foundation for Investigative Journalism, a media outfit owned by Fisayo, based in Lagos State, was grilled and asked to produce him. In a story featured in Premium Times, Amnesty International rose to the journalist's defense. They declared that journalism is not a crime and asked the Nigerian authorities to end fresh attempts by the police to intimidate Soyombo, whose work, according to them, is solely focused on exposing corruption and promoting public interest. It is customs moving the consignments in by themselves. Dende is merely an intermediary who collects money from the importers, that is the smugglers, and hand over parts of the money to the hierarchy of customs led by the Controller General Customs, CGC, and other officers at the headquarters. The CGC, all the Deputy Controllers General of Customs, DCGs, all the Assistant Controllers General of Customs, ACGs, know about it. That's another quote. Now, these are weighty statements to make about a border patrolling organization. Who has the Nigerian government assigned to investigate the activities of the Nigeria Customs Service? How are we to win the war on terrorism if the Customs Service, according to Soyombo, provides the motorcycles and arms for bandits that the Nigerian army are meant to apprehend? The Nigerian government cannot sleep on this one. If indeed it is sincere about the war on corruption, it should not be searching for Soyombo like a criminal. It should let us, Nigerian citizens, know the proactive steps it has taken to investigate Soyombo's claims to ascertain the truthfulness. And then give us the verdict. Is Soyombo right or wrong?
Is Fisayo right or wrong? Fisayo is always right. Always, always, always. FIJ, Foundation for Investigative Journalism. Fisayo, and I will say it again and again, is the best investigative journalist that we have in this country at the moment. Nobody else can come. Nobody else comes close. Fisayo has gone undercover in a police station, to prison, to be arrested, to actually expose what the prison services do. He's the one that exposed the adoption home where they collect money.
Yes.
What's it called? Orphanage of God. That's it. Yeah.
Yes. Harrow of
Fisayo,
God.
Harrow of God. Think Fisayo literally excites me all the time. But here's the thing. What I'm going to add on to what you said is why. It's the why. Yinka, we had this conversation. It's the why for me. Why is there no investigation? Right? The IG of police must be questioned. It literally must be questioned, because why did he give a warrant for Fisayo to be arrested? In fact, he even spoke. He calls the customs to try and get their side of the story. He calls all these people. They don't respond. That tells me.
You're asking why, Ireti?
Why? Why new? Why?
Because we are not ready. That's what I just want to tell you. We are not ready. Uniformed personnel extort money in broad daylight in the city centers. In Abuja, checkpoints spring up at all the exits from the city center from 9 to 10 p.m. very judiciously, and the business continues. We are not ready. You can't hold a machine gun and be asking me you want to drink pure water. That's extortion.
It's important for us to be sure that Fisayo was declared wanted or not.
Bukky Shonibare was asked to produce him.
I know. She was asked to produce him.
Yes.
Okay,
Why is she being asked to produce him?
That is what it's been implied has been declared wanted. We know that the process of declaring somebody wanted, that's not what it is. I don't think that they issued an arrest warrant for Fisayo. If they did, we will know, but they didn't. So let's just be clear on that. Just be clear on that.
Okay, that's the other question. Why? So why not?
Sorry?
If you want somebody, why are you asking somebody? Why not then issue a warrant?
So that's why for me,
if he's done anything wrong.
That's why for me, the questions I'm asking is, who is afraid of Fisayo?
All of them.
That's my question. Because obviously, we know from what we can see that from his report, what we should be seeing is actions from government to investigate the claims, because he is able to substantiate and corroborate it. What we see, is Bukky Shonibare, who is the chair of FIJ, being invited and grilled, you know, and and by the way, when they invited her and grilled her, they never mentioned the customs sorry. They didn't. They brought in another petition. They claimed there was a petition.
That's what they
blah,
always
blah,
do.
blah,
They
blah,
always
blah.
tell lies.
But we know that at the end of the day, what they were trying to get to was to find something to discredit, okay, FIJ, so that they can say, oh, it's discredited on this one, so that
means everything else
custom story
is null and void.
So I completely agree, you know, with your advocacy, and we must put the story on the front burner, and we must ask the government, who is afraid of Zion? Why can't you investigate his report? Why do we have credible information about people, political actors, politically exposed people,
individuals, yeah.
All right, and nothing is being done.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't seen the documentary, but I mean, as he said, Andy said, they're not ready. Corruption is right in front of us all of the time, especially with the uniformed personnel. They're not ready, and I applaud, you know, the investigative journalists who go out there and put their lives at risk to find these stories and expose these things. And yes, the question is, why aren't you investigating these claims? Why don't you go in there and find out if there's any truth to what he said, rather than pursuing the person who has presented you with the truth.
With evidence.
With this evidence. And then maybe call him in and say, okay, some of this, can you even help assist with our inquiries? You know what I mean? But
it's intimidation.
It's intimidation, exactly.
So in other parts of the world, you would get, you know, you get an expose, which is what he did. And it's natural, especially as he's called the police, he has an obligation. And I think if we still practice the British law, because in Nigeria, we don't know where we're going anymore, but that's a whole different system altogether, is that he has an obligation to hand over everything to them. So are they called Buki Shonibare in? Are they called Buki in and said to Buki, right, we've seen this documentary, you know, he's been tagging us and we've seen it. He might not be around, you know, whether we need him. As the chairperson, we would like to appeal to him to give us the evidence. Do you want us to put it in writing or whatever? That is what you're supposed to do, right? Trying to, and this is why they're weak. What did you do? AK-47 for pure water. This is why they're weak. It's true, because when you have to lie to get people in, and then you want me to trust you as the police, and you're then on the other hand, you're saying to me, police is my friend. Well, if you're my friend, you wouldn't be lying to me. And this is what I resent, because journalism isn't a crime. You know, journalism is the fourth realm of the state, right? And exceptional journalism is, in Nigeria especially, are those who actually go beyond boundaries and bring us real evidence. And to find that even the villa, and this is the problem, it's not just the police, the villa
is unperturbed.
Nothing. Nobody has said a thing.
Thank you, Ireti. Thank you, everyone. Finally, this is what I want to say. This is to Nigerians who say the Nigerian media is not doing it, or are not, because that's collective, are not doing enough in terms of investigative journalism. If it were a foreign correspondent or a foreign organization doing this, the Nigerian government would leap at it and to be seen to be doing something. And now this is a Nigerian investigative journalist with the evidence. But instead of you looking at the evidence and the message and going after that, you are now pursuing the journalist. They won't do that for a foreign correspondent or a foreign organization. End of story. We must never get tired of holding those in authority accountable. We certainly keep at it right here at the table. As someone said at the start, we are a relentless bunch. Be sure to join us again next week, same time, for fresh topics and discussion. Until then, goodbye from us.
Bye. Bye. Bye.